I'm David Culver in Beijing, and this is CNN.
The chief speaks. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. The question we've all been asking, why did law enforcement not intervene for 77 minutes in the Texas elementary school shooting that killed 19 children and 2 teachers? In a moment, I'll ask the former FBI agent who created and ran the agency's active shooter program to respond to new developments. There is new reporting from the New York Times and Texas Tribune that has started to shed some light, including the Tribune's exclusive interview with the Uvalde School District Police Chief. Based on a review of documents and video, the Times is saying this: heavily armed officers delayed confronting a gunman in Uvalde, Texas for more than an hour, despite supervisors at the scene being told that some trapped with him in 2 elementary school classrooms were in need of medical treatment, meaning they were alive. Instead, the documents show they waited for protective equipment to lower the risk to law enforcement officers. The shooter entered the school at 11:33 a.m. and began shooting into a classroom, at least 100 rounds. 2 minutes later, 3 Uvalde Police Department officers arrived, approached the class door, and 2 received grazing wounds from the shooter. By 12:03 p.m., as many as 19 officers had gathered in the hallway. They thought they now had a barricaded situation at hand. But at 12:21, there was more gunfire, and the cops still did not move on the shooter. Finally, at 12:50 p.m., law enforcement used a key from a janitor and breached the locked classroom, shot and killed the suspect. More than 2 weeks after the fact, Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo gave an interview to the Texas Tribune by phone, in written answers, and in statements provided by his attorney, George Hyde. Arredondo grew up in Uvalde. He attended the Robb Elementary School where the shootings occurred. He told the Tribune that several factors impeded a quicker response. Among them, he went in without his police and campus radios because he wanted both hands free and thought that the radios would be a physical impediment and likely wouldn't work inside the building. Because of this, he was not in contact with the scores of other officers who arrived. He didn't know of the 911 calls from inside the classroom. The classroom doors had been reinforced to keep intruders out, so to get access, he was waiting on tactical gear and keys. And this, I think, is key. He assumed some other official had taken over the command. Arredondo told officers to start breaking windows from outside other classrooms and evacuating those children and teachers. He wanted to avoid having students coming into the hallway where he feared too much noise would attract the gunman's attention. Arredondo told the Tribune, quote, "Not a single responding officer ever hesitated, even for a moment, to put themselves at risk to save the children. We responded to the information that we had and had to adjust to whatever we faced. Our objective was to save as many lives as we could, and the extraction of the students from the classrooms by all that were involved saved over 500 of our Uvalde students and teachers before we gained access to the shooter and eliminated the threat." CNN has reached out to Arredondo's attorney, DPS, and the school district for comment. Arredondo not giving further interviews at this time. The Uvalde tragedy happened despite steps that were taken locally to prepare for such an attack. The school district had doubled its budget for security. They'd updated protocols. They'd added more officers, and they'd hosted 2 active shooter trainings in the last 2 years. So, what went wrong? Joining me now is the expert on such preparedness. Katherine Schweit was an FBI agent for 20 years before retiring in 2017. After the shootings at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012, she created and ran the Bureau's active shooter program. Now she's the author of Stop the Killing: How to End the Mass Shooting Crisis. Thanks so much for being here. Here's my first question. Can the neutralizing a shooter protocol, can that be taught, or does it require some innate skill? Either you have it or you don't.
Well, I think we never know if we're willing to go after somebody and kill them unless we have a chance to do it, right? But I think you can train it. That's the whole idea of combat. That's the whole idea of warfare. That's the whole idea of policing. We train police officers so that they have the confidence to do that.
You were interviewed for this piece that contained the interview that the chief has now given. Respond, among other things, to him leaving the radios outside. Said he wanted 2 hands free, wasn't sure if they would work. Your reaction?
Well, equipment's equipment. You got to carry it with you. once you isolate yourself, you don't have any way to talk to the rest of your team. You know, it's kind of telling. You said you're reading his quote from that story, and you're saying, "We did this." He said, "We did this. We did this. We did this." There wasn't a we. He said he was in the hallway. He doesn't know what people were doing outside. He didn't know what efforts were being made. So kind of in one hand, he's saying, well, he came in as the police chief for the school district with 2 officers who were from the city, and they did these things. Well, they did them in a very short amount of time, and then he was apparently no longer in communication with them. He should have had his communication devices with him. He should have found a way to do that. He should be able to carry his own equipment.
How about his assumption that someone else must have taken control?
Yeah, you know, this is an experienced police chief, and certainly no law enforcement officer there wanted this to be the result. But when you get groupthink and people don't think about who is in charge, somebody has to be in charge. And certainly someone should have taken charge outside. There's no question about it. But he should have directed somebody to be in charge, or you know, he should have left somebody else at that door. I mean, he's a police chief, even if it's in a small school district. And, you know, that's one of the struggles with Texas is they have, you know, just Friday, they had their meeting for the Texas school district, you know, police chiefs, and they're small departments. They have hundreds of very small police departments with 2 and 4 and 6 people protecting these schools. And, you know, maybe that's something that they got to rethink.
Okay, look, I'm trying to be fair to law enforcement. I regard myself as being generally supportive of law enforcement. This baffles me. So they get there and they assess the situation as having now become a barricaded situation, but then there's more gunfire. You heard the chronology that I presented. If they'd assumed it was a barricaded situation, but they now hear gunfire, they've got to go in, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I want to say there's no excuse. I could say that if those were my people who did that. And I know the DOJ and the cops office is going to do a full tear down of what happened and give us an after action that gives us minute to minute. But we have a lot of information that tells us there were shots being fired. And law enforcement 101 is if shots are being fired, you have to go to the sound of the shots and you have to neutralize those people, even if it means you have to find a way to get through a reinforced door or walls or windows. I mean, the fact that they would break out windows in a bunch of classrooms, but they wouldn't break them out in those classrooms to get to the shooter is a question, you know, that I would be asking my team.
Okay, your book is called Stop the Shooting. Can we stop the shooting? Are there warning flags that you can see in these type of people that you can say, there it is, right there, they should be stopped before they ever get to the school?
Yeah, actually, the book is called Stop the Killing. But yes, there are tons of flags that we can look for. You know, individuals who are doing this kind of violence move on a trajectory towards that violence. They get the idea to do it. Then they plan and prepare. That's where we see these kids and these adults buy their weapons, buy their equipment, surveil the area. Plus, they also leak this information to people. I think it's astonishing how people don't understand. People don't know that in 80 to 90% of the instances, somebody else is told this is going to happen. The shooter leaks the information to somebody. So you really have to listen to the people around you. Yeah, 80 to 90% of the time. So more for younger shooters, a little less for adults. You know, the average age of this type of shooter is 35, median age 32. But these school shootings obviously are a lot of times younger people, as we know, and they leak information almost all the time.
Run, fight, hide quickly. Is that still the model?
Yes, run, hide, fight is the model. Run if you can, escape, meaning run if you can, hide if you must, and fight if you have to save your life. And I'll tell you, when we did our initial research, that in 160 incidents, 21 of the 160 incidents just like this were disrupted and successfully stopped by unarmed individuals. Don't think because you're not carrying a weapon that you can't fight and win against this guy. You can.
A lot of good messages. Stop the Killing is the proper title. Stop the Killing. Kate, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, anytime.
What are your thoughts? Tweet me at Smerconish. Go to my Facebook page. I will read some responses throughout the course of the program. What do we have, Catherine? From the Twitterverse. I think they knew they would be outgunned. They chose their own safety over the children. Can I comment, Charlie, on the outgunned? You know what I wonder? Why there's not more voice from law enforcement on the gun issue generally, right? Like, why don't we more often hear from cops who say to legislators, you got to do something? Because we are arriving on scenes and we are outgunned. You would think there'd be more voice. Maybe it's because they're so tied to the gun culture. I don't know, but I'm waiting for that, and maybe that could change the dynamic. New issue. With the January 6 hearings now underway, we're all paying attention. My question is, can anything still change people's minds, or are we all dug in on our impression of January 6? Well, last night I appeared with Wolf Blitzer on the Situation Room. We had this exchange.
The committee did reveal former President Trump was essentially cheering on the mob while his vice president made calls to stop the violence. What will you be listening for in the upcoming witnesses from Pence's inner circle? Because they will be very, very significant.
There's one game changer in this process. It's Mike Pence. How could the former vice president hear what we heard last night and not himself want to be a part of this process? He stands the prospect of being the John Dean in all of this. And instead, it's a story that's going to be told through aides unless something changes. We're still learning things about the vice president. Within the last hour, Politico reported that the vice president was provided a legal memo in the days before January 6, where they were meticulously monitoring all of the election charges that were being made by the president and his supporters. They weren't finding merit in any of them. If he would decide to come forward and participate, I think that would blow the lid off this process. I don't expect it, but you have to wonder, why wouldn't he? It has to be only that he's fearful of alienating the base because of his own future aspirations. You agree with what I told Wolf Blitzer? How could Mike Pence not want to testify? You know, the guy whom outside, as he was being ushered out of the well of Congress by a Secret Service trying to save his life, they're chanting for his execution. How could he avoid? Why would he not want to be the first witness? This is this week's survey question. Go to my website at Smerconish.com and answer this question. Would testimony from former Vice President Mike Pence be a January 6 investigation game changer? My vote's a yes. Up ahead, although many Americans are enjoying the flexibility of remote work, corporate executives pushing to get them back in the office. Will working from home turn out to be a pandemic anomaly or a revolution? And six-time major champion Phil Mickelson among 17 golfers suspended by the PGA for competing in Saudi Arabia's inaugural LIV event, all of them choosing to look past the regime's crimes. I'll discuss with Mickelson's biographer, who first reported the golfer's thinking on the issue and then was kicked out of a Mickelson press conference just this week.
Connecting Africa in association with Afreximbank.
Opay is Nigeria's foremost financial inclusion service provider. Everywhere in Nigeria today, even in the remotest part of Nigeria, we have a large agency banking business with more than 500,000 agents across Nigeria. But we're also the last mile in terms of access to financial services for more than 10 million Nigerians, many of which do not have any form of bank account through the Opay digital wallet. We go to where banks cannot go to. We are much more nimble. We are more tech-oriented. Therefore, we can deploy in a more agile way and get to reach far many more areas. That is where you find Opay. The excluded in Nigeria will be truly brought into the formal financial services, and that's our mission.
Connecting Africa in association with Afreximbank.
On culinary journeys, meet Japan's Natsuko Shoji, a chef earning rave reviews. Inspired by art, she is a rising star in French cuisine and in an industry where men dominate. See how she overcame life's challenges despite the odds and is now paving the way for a new generation. Culinary Journeys, Sunday on CNN, in association with Ajinomoto.
Being a diver, there's so much they can do to protect the ocean and save the ocean. If you look at the ocean out there, okay, there's some net that's drifting in the water. Could be much bigger than the size of any boat out there, okay? So imagine a net being drifting. Okay, it can drift from days, months, years, until they get removed.
It's no longer catching fish for people, but sadly, it is still catching fish, and very often wildlife, like turtles and dolphins and seabirds.
A couple of times I almost got killed, being tangled. Got it! You found it? No, I'm holding it. I'm holding it. It's heavy. Age is only a figure, okay? There's so much we can do, no matter how old you are.
I am Nigerian by blood, British by birth, and American by residence. It is important to me that those same strands of inclusivity that flow through me are mirrored in the stories that we tell. One World is a place where Africa has an equal seat at the global table alongside Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Every continent has a voice, and where everyone watching has a stake in the global conversation.
One World with Zain Asher, weeknights on CNN.
All right, you guys ready?
Alex Jones.
Those thought patterns, the 3%ers, QAnon group, or the anti-vaxxers, they all originate from Alex.
How much damage can one man do to school shooting victims?
Alex Jones lied about Sandy Hook.
And the country.
The people who listen to him believe the things that he says.
CNN asks those who know him.
He's not like you or me.
The truth doesn't really matter at all.
CNN Special Report, Megaphone for Conspiracy. Alex Jones, Monday on CNN.
Would you do anything for money? This week, that question being asked of some of America's best-known names in golf who have signed on to headline a new global tour funded by Saudi Arabia. The 8-tournament series, billed as a rival to the United States PGA Tour, offers players fewer games and guaranteed prize money. It teed off this week at Centurion Club outside of London. It includes stops at 2 of former President Trump's golf resorts, Bedminster, New Jersey, Miami, Florida, Doral. But it's the backing by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, which is controlled by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, that has garnered most of the criticism that it has received. The kingdom being accused of using the tournament to help clean up its reputation of human rights abuses and alleged state-sponsored killings, including the death of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The Crown Prince denies any involvement in that murder, yet criticism from golf fans and human rights activists hasn't prevented some of the game's most famous players, including the likes of Phil Mickelson, from joining up and starting the event. Mickelson reportedly receiving a handsome 9-figure payout just to play in the LIV Golf Tournament. Moments after players teed off at LIV's first event outside of London this week, the PGA Tour suspended 17 of them, including Mickelson, saying they were, quote, no longer eligible to participate in events on the American-based tour. My next guest, Alan Shipnick, is a biographer of Phil Mickelson, who says that he was kicked out of the press conference at LIV this week. Shipnick texted the head of LIV, Greg Norman, whether he was aware of the incident, to which Norman replied, did not hear. Thanks for letting me know. Shipnick later found CNN footage showing that Norman was not only aware, but was on the ground behind him watching the entire situation. Shipnick's ouster came after publishing controversial comments from Mickelson downplaying the Saudis' human rights affronts. Quote, they're scary MFers to get involved with. We know they killed Khashoggi and have a horrible record on human rights. Knowing all of this, why would I even consider it? Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reshape how the PGA Tour operates. Now, this is how the 6-time major champion is defending joining the Saudi-backed tour this week.
I don't condone human rights violations. I don't know how I can be any more clear. I understand your question. But again, I love this game of golf. I've seen the good that it's done. And I see the opportunity for Live Golf to do a lot of good for the game throughout the world. And I'm excited to be a part of this opportunity.
Joining me now is Alan Shipnick. He's a partner with the Fire Pit Collective. He's the author of Phil, the rip-roaring and unauthorized biography of golf's most colorful superstar. Alan, why were you booted from the presser this week?
Well, the people involved with Live, including the players, they want the money, but they don't want the scrutiny. You know, they want the fame and the glory. They don't want the accountability. And so I think we know that Saudi Arabia does not exactly encourage a independent free press, and apparently the Live Golf circuit has absorbed those values. So I was just here doing my job, trying to ask a few boring golf questions, but even that was too much for them. So I was a couple of goons, manhandled me and took me out of Phil's press conference. It was just a wild overreaction, but I think it kind of reflects this siege mentality that a lot of the people associated with Live are feeling. They're feeling the heat, they're feeling the criticism, and they just overreacted.
Did Phil have a choice? I ask that because I read and enjoyed your book. What most stands out from your book are the stories about his gambling. I mean, you've got him laying a significant wager on the Baltimore Ravens years ago, and on the day, I think it was, of the AFC Championship game, he's playing in a tournament, and yet he's wired to a radio so that he can keep tabs on the game.
Yeah, that's not normal behavior of a casual sports fan. That's been one of the underlying questions, is why is Phil chasing this Saudi money so hard? And, earlier in the week, he admitted that he's had a gambling addiction, which is a powerful word, and that it got so bad it threatened his financial well-being. He claims to have gotten under control. I hope that's true, but there's no real way of knowing that. But we know he's made a fortune through the years. The question is, how much has he kept? And there's some still, despite Phil's public statements earlier this week, there's still some question about that. So I think the Saudi money was very intoxicating for him. And but Phil's a complex guy, and there was another element to this, is he wanted to be right. He's very strident and self-righteous, and he sees himself as this maverick and this agent of change, and he wanted to reshape the entire sport in his image. And so no one gets in bed with the Saudis without the money, for sure. But I think Phil also saw this as an opportunity to shake things up and to really be a transformative figure in the sport. And that was very appealing to him as well.
Let me ask you this question about golf generally and the impact. While the majors are allowing qualified players to play this year, what's going to happen next year if the world golf rankings do not recognize the Live Tour? In other words, will those players be able to maintain their world rankings to qualify for the majors? Or is this a quiet way for the majors to not get involved directly with this story, but taking a side nonetheless?
Yeah, that's the most important piece in all of this, is what the world rankings are going to do. But that could also be litigated, because if you have these tournaments that have a number of major championship winners and Hall of Famers and big time players, and to not acknowledge those events and hand out the world ranking points that they frankly deserve, it is a partisan decision. And the world ranking is supposed to be an independent body. So I think ultimately they're going to have to, Tiger Woods has a tournament with only 20 players and no cut every year. It's just an exhibition to raise money for his foundation. But the world rankings governing body awards points for that tournament, which is kind of a farce. And this is much more of an actual competition with a deeper field and a lot of players. So I think the precedent is that they're going to have to acknowledge these events, and they're going to have to give them world rankings points. And then the players who join the Live Tour get what they want. They get the money, they get a reduced schedule, and they can still play in the 4 tournaments that really matter. So this is unresolved, but I think we know the direction it's going to go.
Hey, Alan, quick observation. I'm a political guy. I'm not a golf guy. I have a 27 handicap. But I keep wondering if these golfers are going to get some protection from the fact that President Biden is himself reportedly about to sit down with MBS because of escalating gas prices, so that a Phil is going to be able to say, well, if Biden's meeting with the guy, why can't I play in the tournament? Anyway, loved your book. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the tournament.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Let's see what you're saying on my Smerconish Twitter and Facebook pages and via YouTube. This comes from the world of Twitter. It's hard to reconcile the attacks on Mickelson and others. Oh, come on. I didn't know this was coming. Did I not just prove that I don't see the social media that they put up in front of me? That is the point, right? I mean, President Biden, who said, I'm going to make Saudi Arabia, as a candidate, I'm going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah, is now going to go sit down with MBS. And by the way, I don't know that that's necessarily the wrong move because of the energy crisis that we are now facing. And I've spoken to 9/11 victims who say their understanding of it, as long as Biden, when he gets MBS in that room, reminds him of the Saudi role in September 11, the 28 pages, and all of those corresponding issues. I want to remind you, go to my website at Smerconish.com, answer this week's survey question, register for the daily newsletter while you're there. Would testimony from former Vice President Mike Pence be a January 6 investigation game changer? I am voting yes, but I don't expect that Pence is going to testify. But why won't he? Up ahead, a growing number of companies want to put an end to the work-from-home revolution, but do they have the leverage? A reporter who covers this topic will explain just who has the upper hand.
Bring the energy.
Welcome to the draft.
Aramco Team Series London goes to Team Tower.
3 pros, 1 amateur. Let's go.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
All new Inside Africa. Go inside the inventive minds, evolving places, and creative trends of the Africa you need to know now.
Explore how NFT pioneers find new opportunities for Africa's creative community.
This technology gives them a shot to be seen by a global family of collectors.
Inside Africa, this weekend on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
Welcome to The Lead. We begin with breaking news. The United States has plunged into a recession. We're seeing infections at an all-time high. What's your reaction to that? Here are the facts.
The Lead with Jake Tapper.
travel the world? Make sure the world travels with you. Check in, log on, and get connected with all of the latest developments at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels. Connected to your world.
I'm Jim Bitterman in Paris, and this is CNN.
Will the Great Resignation become the Great Return? Employers across the country engaged in a fractious debate over which workplace approach is the most productive. Is it in the office? Is it at home? Is it a hybrid? With the challenges of working remotely becoming increasingly harder to ignore, a growing number of corporate executives now want to put an end to the work-from-home revolution born out of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to research conducted by Microsoft earlier this year, 50% of leaders say their company already requires or plans to require full-time in-person work in the year ahead. Netflix is one of those companies. Its co-CEO, Reed Hastings, is one of the most outspoken business leaders around remote working.
I think it's really valuable and important and useful to have in-person meetings, and I miss that. So I would say there's nothing good about the 10-person Zoom call that I wouldn't rather do in person.
Earlier this month, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk issued an ultimatum to his employees demanding they return to the office. In an email obtained by the New York Times, Musk told workers that they were required to spend a minimum of 40 hours in the office per week. Those who did not do so would be fired. But many workers have gotten used to the flexibility, and they seem to have the leverage. The unemployment rate currently sits at 3.6%, meaning there are more open jobs than workers to fill them. Lana Nguyen covers Wall Street for the New York Times. She's been writing extensively about exactly these issues and joins me now. So, are there trends by industry in terms of who is going back to work and who is not?
Yes, Michael, thanks for having me. And I think Mr. Hastings and Mr. Musk might be in a bit of a pickle here, because the tech industry is actually very far ahead of other industries in allowing their workers to work remotely, maybe forever. So a lot of announcements from companies like Twitter, Airbnb have gotten a lot of attention for allowing remote workers to, basically do their thing. This work from home experiment has shown that people have been productive, and so the tech industry is really leading the charge there. In the industry that I cover in Wall Street, there's a lot of divergence. Some firms are really sticklers about trying to get people back into the office 5 days a week, Goldman Sachs being one of them. And other firms that were super hardline about this, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, have had to kind of soften their tone in recent months because they've seen that the staff have been dragging their feet and not coming back in as much as they would like.
What kind of perks are you seeing offered by employers to try and lure back the workforce?
Well, food is a big one. So a lot of companies are offering free lunches, snacks, ad hoc gatherings, pizza on particular days to try and drive that critical mass in. Other companies are also offering flexibility. That means that, staff can maybe take 2 weeks off during the year to work from anywhere, but, that trying to keep people happy more generally so that they're more likely to come into the office more regularly.
Lannon, what explains the hesitancy by workers?
Well, first of all, I see that a lot of your guests are still, dialing in from home, and you're interviewing them from their home offices. And the point is that a lot of people have been able to prove that they've been really productive during this period. And so that argument that remote working doesn't work, that people will slack off and stay at home and watch TV all day, just doesn't hold water anymore. So I think that's the first main point. The second is a lot of people have long commutes and sort of miserable commutes, particularly in New York City. People have really long commutes here. And so that becomes less less palatable, and it takes up a lot of time to commute as well, and is expensive. So that's a key barrier for a lot of people who don't want to return back to the office. So I think those two things are really huge.
I think that the ripple effects of this are really significant. I think about my own experience in the decade that I was practicing law. First of all, there's an impact on the commercial real estate market, but I would park the car. I would grab a cup of coffee nearby the law office. I would go to lunch. I might have a cocktail at the end of the day. I might get my shoes shined. I might go to a newsstand. All of those are now impacted.
Yes, that's right. I think one of the statistics that the controller of the city talked about is that Wall Street employees, I think, are connected to 10 other employees in the city, for all of those services that you mentioned. You might go and do some dry cleaning or go out to a restaurant or go to 2 restaurants in a day. So there is a huge question about how cities deal with this scattering of remote workers, in particular the big metropolitan areas. New York City only has 8% of companies back in the office full time. And, in the major cities across the US, I think the occupancy rate for offices is, around 43%. So that's still pretty low. And that would be a big question going forward, how cities deal with this.
Scott Galloway, who's a friend from NYU, was here talking about this recently with me, and he said, don't overlook the impact on mentorship. His advice to young people was get back into the office because proximity is key to your career enhancement. You get the final word on this.
I think you can have proximity, but you can also have flexibility, and the jury is still out where we land on this, but I do think that workers are really going to insist on more flexibility at the same time as wanting some physical and in-person interaction. You can have both, and we'll see where we land. Are
you writing for the New York Times in the office or at home?
Both. So I'm a perfect example of that.
The hybrid model. Landon, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody, make sure you're answering this week's survey question at smerconish.com. This arose out of me appearing with Wolf last night, being asked about Mike Pence and his aides. And I said to myself, what I'm wondering as I'm watching the January 6th investigation unfold is, where's Pence? Why wouldn't he want to be a part of this process? And the only answer I can come up with is because he doesn't want to alienate the base, because he himself has aspirations of running for the top job. The survey question today is asking this: would testimony from former Vice President Mike Pence, would that be a January 6th investigation game changer? Go vote. I'll give you the results in a couple of minutes. Still to come, my next guest is a doctor. He's got a prescription for everyone to improve our mental and physical health. And guess what? It does not involve taking any medication. I'll explain.
All new African Voices Changemakers. Create opportunities. Impact communities. Transform lives. Meet the photographers who are capturing stories on equality and social justice.
I felt that it was my responsibility to document our realities.
African Voices Changemakers, this weekend on CNN, in association with Glow.
We decided a few years ago to set out on a journey which we call Enable a Fossil-Free Living Within One Generation. And you can see all around Europe that the competitive situation is shifting away from fossil fuels and into renewables and into more nuclear power. So you can see that there's a lot of innovation going on around the fossil-free technologies, and you can also clearly see that the customer demand is shifting. And today I think we can see that companies and customers are actually moving much faster than nations or global initiatives. So I think that this is a business strategy for us. It's not a sustainability strategy first and foremost. It's a business strategy, and it is sustainable. But we can clearly see that through this transformation, we are actually getting increasingly competitive.
When you're on a motorcycle, you're experiencing the world in such a different way. When you hit the open road and there's nothing but kind of the sunset that you're chasing, it really does give you a sense of what it means to be alive. My name is Lauren Trantham, and I'm the founder and executive director of Ride My Road. Ride My Road is a fundraising organization. We primarily operate within the motorcycle community to raise funds and awareness around the topics of human trafficking in the United States. In 2016, I was going through a divorce, and it was a really tough time for me. And so I decided to jump on my motorcycle and take my camera. I did 10,000 miles across America. I photographed 40 survivors. That was really how I began this journey, was more as a personal project as a photographer, with just this idea, this thought that can we heal a broken heart through helping others? Survivors are literally the best among us. They have persevered and have so much resilience, and we have so much to learn from them. We look at vulnerable people and think that maybe they're just cast aside or they're not important, but I think really we need to look to them if we want to move forward on issues like human trafficking.
Connect the world with Becky Anderson.
It all starts here. Changing, fighting, creating, connecting. That's why we're here. We live here, we work here, we're from here, and we'll go wherever the story takes us.
I'm Becky Anderson in Tehran. We are in Jerusalem.
Real news that shapes our world. Exploring not just what's going on, but why.
I just want to press you on one further point.
Getting perspective on this region from this region. Places that many of us know, but few of us get to see. Observing countries on the move, still rooted in tradition. It all starts here, and that's why we're here, bringing you the world from our Middle Eastern hub.
Connect the world with Becky Anderson, Monday through Friday on CNN.
We're here at the home of one of the FSB team. Was it your team that poisoned Navalny?
What do you want the world to know?
People are so exhausted. Just gonna help her carry this bag.
Scores of Taliban fighters, and just behind us, the U.S. Embassy.
I'm the one who has to look them in the eye. Can I have your word? These people are depending on you.
Now they're pressing in. They want desperately to tell their stories.
Most of the headlines these days, they're brutal. War, inflation, gun violence, divisiveness, and understandably then, mental health crises. My next guest says that to counter all that, there's one simple thing we can do in our daily life. He claims his prescription can help people with longer life, better cardiovascular health, slower aging, better willpower and stamina, more energy, better sleep, less depression and anxiety, more happiness and fulfillment, as well as personal and professional success, and get this, all with no harmful side effects. What is it? Joining me now to discuss is Dr. Anthony Mazzarelli. He's an emergency medicine physician, a lawyer, and co-president and CEO of the Cooper University Healthcare System. He's the co-author with Stephen Trzeciak of the brand new book, Wonder Drug, 7 scientifically proven ways that serving others is the best medicine for yourself. Dr. Maz, I read it, I loved it. Your new book really takes aim at this current self-help orthodoxy. You know, think yoga, which tells people to focus on themselves and their own happiness for a better life. But you found that serving others and kindness actually positively affects your own health and life. Explain.
Yeah, it's true, Michael. My co-author, Dr. Steve Trzeciak, and I reviewed over 250 peer-reviewed studies, and the science is overwhelming that serving and caring about others is the key to all the benefits you just listed. It's not our opinion, it's what we found in the data. And the science directly contradicts the advice that many of today's self-help experts push, which are essentially all solitary pursuits to following your passions and to focus on self-care. However, it's when we take our eyes off ourselves and turn our attention to serve others and care about others that it's a powerful medicine that not only heals our bodies, but improves our emotional state as well as changes how others view us.
All right, you're telling me that our mothers were right. Karma, kismet actually makes a difference. And you say the data backs it up? Give me an example.
Well, in reality, the universe owes us nothing, right? Karma or pay it forward is transactional. We're talking about something transformational. Caring about other people has 5 mechanisms through which it affects you. First, it activates the reward centers in the brain, as seen on functional MRI scans. Second, it increases what we call the Fantastic Four neurotransmitters: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Third, it fine-tunes the nervous system, activating the parasympathetic system, resting and calm, over the sympathetic system, fight or flight. Fourth, it downregulates systemic inflammation, which can cause cardiovascular disease and cancer, among other things. And fifth, it buffers the body's stress response, which is another cause of disease.
Maz, the premise is be kind. Okay, I get that. How much of a commitment does this require from each of us? Do we have to go work at a soup kitchen?
Now, first, start small. Start with those around you. Simply make the decision to look outward, to give, help, care, and connect more. How much do you need to do to make a difference? In multiple studies, it's 100 hours a year. If you do the math, that works out to, on average, 60 minutes a day. Second, be purposeful. Hunt around for ways to help others. Ask the right questions to detect when you can make a difference for someone, whether it's giving up your seat on a bus, a kinder approach to colleagues at work, perhaps more involved volunteer work. Third, find common ground. Research shows that we make incredibly wrong assumptions about people. We underestimate them, we assume the worst, and we often underestimate the impact we can have on them. A 2017 study found that 40% of Republicans and 40% of Democrats define the opposing party as downright evil. 20% of both parties agreed that members of the other side lack the traits to be considered fully human. You miss out on way too many opportunities to shine your light on others if you don't expand your view of who you are willing to connect with, including people who think differently than you do.
Okay, in other words, Republicans, be kind to Democrats. Members of the Democratic Party, be kind to Republicans, because it may literally extend your own life.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I have a cynic gene in me, I need to ask this. Do I have to mean it? Can I be kind to you, but really not in my heart?
No, you have to mean it. The scientific evidence shows that motives matter. The more you mean it, the better the benefit. So if you're what social scientists call a strategic helper, that is, you're only doing it to make yourself look good or only to get something in return, you'll get minimal benefits. The good news is it's not so hard to train yourself to care for real. The science suggests that actual caring follows that decision to help others.
Okay, Dr. Maz, final question. What if I, too, want to someday be the co-CEO of a major health system and have a corner office just like I presume you're sitting in? If I'm nice to everybody, I'm not going to be Gordon Gekko. I'm never getting the office, am I?
Not true. We do traditionally think of the apex predator that gets to the top by dominating all competition, and some do. However, it's actually harder for those types, according to the research, which demonstrates that giving and supporting types are the people with the wind at their back rather than a target on their back. The data supports something called idiosyncrasy credits. If your colleagues like you, they'll be happy for your success. If they dislike you, they'll resent your rise and plot to take you down.
Okay, so to quote Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead, if I just am kind, if I be kind, I'm getting the big office, I'm living longer, and people are going to like and respect me. It all sounds too good to be true.
It is.
It is true. Not too good to be true.
It is absolutely true. It's no, it is exactly. It is true. Not too good to be true. The science shows it. It's not an opinion. It's what we found in the science.
All right. Our moms know best. Wonder Drug. Thanks, Maz. I appreciate it very much. Good luck.
Thanks, Michael.
Still to come, more of your best and worst tweets and Facebook comments. I love this week's survey question. I hope you're voting on it. Go to smirconish.com right now. Would testimony, we keep talking about, are they moving the needle? All this information, the hearings, prime time, Liz Cheney. Would testimony from Mike Pence be an investigation game changer? Here come the results. Go vote.
20,000 naira for free. 20,000 naira bonus.
Is your line blocked? Then move to Glow.
I'm reconnected.
Because we've all reconnected. And it's simple. Dial *109# and link your NIN to your new or existing Glow number.
Get up to 20,000 naira for free with Glow.
20,000 naira bonus free.
Yes, so free.
Nigel, what are you waiting for?
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly, whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch for easy, fast, and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now in your hands. People, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm Vedika Sood in New Delhi, and this is CNN.
The Royal Oak by Audemars Piguet was the world's first stainless steel luxury sports watch.
Famous watch designer Gerald Genta drew inspiration from a deep-sea diver's helmet, which had an octagonal shape as well as riveted screws around the design.
It sold for around $3,000 when it was first released in 1972. And you know, this was considered both by the industry and by the general watch buying public as just a piece of inexplicable insanity. You know, you just didn't charge that for a stainless steel watch. And not only did they not go out of business, it has gone on to become the single most important watch commercially and aesthetically for Audemars Piguet. They're avidly collected. Yeah, they are icons of modern watch design. It's gone on to become one of the most successful wristwatches of all time.
World's biggest business stories in one place. Expert analysis from every corner of the globe. Marketplace, Africa, Asia, Europe, and Middle East. With CNNBusiness.com.
Once in a generation opportunity.
Technology, innovation, business.
Time to see how you responded to this week's survey question at Smerconish.com. Would testimony from former Vice President Mike Pence be a January 6 investigation game changer? Here's the result. What do we got? Yeah, 76% have the correct idea, and nearly 20, now they tell me more than 25,000 have already voted. It's the one thing that could be a game changer in all of this. I think Nielsen said 20 million people watch. That's a pretty big number, but are the people watching already those most concerned about January 6th and not wanting to see a repeat? Is it breaking through? We still don't know the answer to that. But if Mike Pence were to testify and talk about what he went through from Election Day until January 6th, including that day, that could be a game changer. I'll leave the question up. You can keep voting. Catherine, social media reaction, what else came in? Pence will never be elected president. He should do the right thing. Right, but Dr. Siegel, he thinks he might be elected president. And the only reason, come on, put yourself in his position. You have to be ushered into a secret bunker on January 6th because people outside are calling for your execution. And now factor in that Liz Cheney told us the other night that President Trump's response was, hey, maybe our supporters have the right answer. Pence deserves it. Trump has denied that. But by the way,